Welcome to Lethbridge and the Canadian Antiques Roadshow. This is the best known symbol of the city, the one they put on the postcards, because the high-level bridge is the longest and tallest viaduct bridge in the world, spanning the coulee over the Old Man River, 5,516.9 feet. Built by the CPR to replace an old wooden trestle, the first train passed over June 23rd, 1909, and they're still running. Now, the railway was one of the pillars upon which this city was founded. Without that, and coal, and agriculture, there'd be no Lethbridge to be hosting the Canadian Antiques Roadshow.
You brought in some great things today. Can you give me some history on these?
Well, I worked for the railroad in the 60s when I got out of school.
Right.
And I was in the CPR station in Milk River, Alberta. And these posters are advertising posters that went on the wall, and there was about 4 frames with the posters in them.
Right.
And what they were supposed to do is when the agents got new posters, they would take the old ones out, destroy them, and put the new one in.
Right.
Well, what they did is they put poster after poster after poster, one
Into
on top
the
of the other.
frames. Yeah.
So when they closed the station down in the 60s, I rescued these posters and kept them and folded them up and put them away, and I've had them ever since.
Boy, were you smart. You have some fantastic pieces of Canadian history. Men of Valor, you have the whole series here. There were 3 according to print, 1944. Look at this. This is just Canada at its best, eh? Coming through the Rockies. The last in the series of Men of Valor, these guys on a submarine attacking the Nazis. One of my favorite. Europe by land, sea, the Lawrence route. And this is a great one. This is something that never happens anymore. You can't go anywhere for $15. You can't even take a cab down the street. And here it is, 15 bucks. Well, what you have here is a little time capsule of great Canadian art that relates to Canada, relates to the war, relates to transportation in Canada. It just fills in whole gaps that we don't have anymore. These are rare survivors of early Canadian poster art. And how many do you have in total?
43.
43. I would say that you would have a value on these of approximately $30,000.
Well, that's really good for just a bunch of paper.
For a bunch of paper that you got to take home free.
You got to take home free.
I guess you could call that your work bonus.
Yeah, there you go.
Plan, or so that your retirement plan.
Retirement plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this is a wonderful technological item you've brought in. Technology of the day. See, this is a 5-cent early payphone, but yeah, when we put one of today's dimes in here, it doesn't work. And this is because before 1923-22, when we introduced the Canadian nickel, we had the Canadian silver 5-cent piece, which would have worked in here. So this certainly dates it before that time, and probably early as 1910, 1915. It's made up of 2 different components. We've got the Graytel Painfo patented mechanism, which allowed someone to put a coin in and make the call. And then we have the Northern Electric chromed candlestick telephone with its original Bakelite earpiece. Hard to put a value on it without actually doing some work on it. But in my mind, seeing it there as an object, a collector technology, surely would have to pay at least $1,000 for it, if not more.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's a really tremendous item.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Whose dress is this?
This was my grandmother's dress that she wore when she came from Japan. And when they landed in Lethbridge by train, they were told that she had to have a gown, and my grandfather had to have the tails and the trousers.
Look how beautifully they're dressed to walk on the boardwalks of Lethbridge.
And picked up by farmers wearing their coveralls. So they were a little overdressed, but we've kept the dress.
Isn't that beautiful? And this is your mom?
This is my mom, and she was only 2 when this picture was taken.
God, look how immaculate they look.
I'm rather excited to see this painting here today. What can you tell me about it? How did you come to be in possession of it?
Well, this painting has been in my home as long as I can remember. My grandfather was C.D. Lennox. He and his brother were the architects of the old City Hall in Toronto.
That makes
And
sense.
this, I believe, it was done by George Reid, and he was commissioned to do some murals in the old City Hall around 1896. My grandfather was given this study after the mural was painted.
I think that story is almost accurate. George Reid, upon his return from Europe, he wanted to implement a policy of public murals in municipal and federal buildings. He did the 2 murals in the municipal building in Toronto on a free basis to get politicians interested in the program. Ultimately, that program failed due to budgeting. Reid went on to have a very successful career doing murals for private commissions, private homes, and some federal and municipal buildings. This, I believe, to have been painted perhaps in Paris. Prior to that time, Reid was studying abroad and saw a log yard which reminded him of stories that his father had told him about logging in Ontario. So he hired a bunch of French models to go stand on the logs, and he painted sketches from them. The theme is very similar to the murals in Toronto. The painting appears to be unsigned. There are some issues of damage on the painting, which should likely be restored. Over the past 2 years, we've seen a real run-up in values of George Agnew Reid. If your painting was to come to market today, I would anticipate that it would realize $40,000 to $50,000.
Really?
Which is a rather nice thing to have in your home.
It certainly is.
Especially given your family history.
Yes, and it'll stay in the family.
Wonderful.
There are so many great things here in Lethbridge. We'll be back with more.
This is a really nice looking guitar. Tell me about how you got it.
Well, I bought this at a second-hand store back in '81, and I've been playing it ever since.
Do you play it in a band?
I did have a group. I don't do it so much anymore.
Okay. As you know, this is a Gretsch Country Gentleman guitar.
Yes, it is.
And I would guess it's probably made in the early 1970s. And at the time that this guitar was made, the Baldwin Piano Company owned Gretsch. But this was early on in that period. Canadian rock music icon, Randy Bachman, is a major collector and enthusiast of the Gretsch guitars. The Country Gentleman was a really desired model. It was the preferred guitar of Chet Atkins, and this is a really nice example. Could I take a quick look at it?
Sure.
It's in really beautiful condition. There's a little bit of wear on the metal and a wear here. None of this wear is abuse. It's just from use, and I think you've probably lovingly used it. Some of them had an opening in the back. This one doesn't have it. Very desirable by country players and rockabilly players. And if I wanted to put a value on it today, because the condition is so fine and you've got the original case, I'd say $3,000 to $4,000.
Very interesting. A lot more than the $800 I paid for it.
Yeah, it sure is. Nice guitar. Thank you for bringing it along.
Thank you for having me.
I took my school kids across Western Canada following the route of the Mounted Police 34 years ago. We found this, and I've wondered what it is ever since.
So, oh golly, it's heavy. We don't have any idea what it is, but well, I think this is a good opportunity to stump the experts.
Might be a rare case of petrified ice cream.
My goodness.
Dug out of the ground. You're the first one to sniff it.
Really?
You know those buffalo that came over that jump? Well, that's what they did to finish them off at the bottom of the hill.
This is unbelievable.
No.
Do you know what it is?
No.
I don't know what it is.
He doesn't know either. Okay, Bruce, you win the prize. Doesn't happen very often because they're so smart. But you win a Canadian Antiques Roadshow t-shirt.
Wow.
But the sad thing is, you still haven't solved your mystery.
I guess that's the way it's going to be.
Does this belong to you?
Yes.
Does it really?
Yeah.
How did you get it?
Well, it's a Passover. It's from my great-great-grandfather.
Right.
And it's from the Boer War.
Okay.
And
it's a big sword, right?
Yeah.
Well, it certainly is. It's a British sword used by Canadians, and it's called the pattern 1898 cavalry sword. And it's quite the weight. So this was your great-great-great-grandfather's. Well, I can tell you something about it, that we're looking at a lot of the markings on this, and right in here, we've got some markings that say that it belonged to a regiment called the Princess Louisa's Dragoon Guards. But that's been crossed out, and what we find here is a Lord Strathcona's horse. And the Lord Strathcona's horse, of course, is one of Alberta's favourite regiments. What you need to do when you get home is put some oil on the blade to keep it nice and shiny. Don't polish it, but just a little oil.
Okay.
And it'll last you for as long as when you're my age, which is getting up there, you know. And it also, you should look after it because it's also worth, it's going to increase in value. But right now you're looking at this sword, which is probably worth around $500. Okay? So you're going to have to look after it.
Yes,
all right?
I will. Yes.
Great. That's good.
We think we found our answer, and it's someone who's actually just visiting the Antiques Roadshow, not even one of our experts. Tell me what you think.
I believe what you're looking at here is an oolite. It's a naturally occurring item. It wasn't man-made at all. It grows very much like a pearl in an oyster.
And what kind of stone is it then?
Like a mineral deposit.
Mineral deposit.
Yeah, oolite, OOLITE.
Mystery solved.
Thank you.
Boy, what a genius. We're lucky we ran into you. Would you like to work on the show?
I'd love to.
We could use someone really smart like you. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrying on right into the doesn't get much more Canadian than this. I'm thinking of Lorne Greene doing his radio show in front of this microphone, or maybe even World War II, you know, what's going on in the front over in Europe. I mean, I have a certain attachment when I saw this, but first I'd like to know, what is yours? How did you come across this?
It actually belongs to my father.
Yeah.
Him and my mother were shopping for a house in Northern Ontario, and they were at an open house and saw this sitting on the shelf. My dad fell in love with it because it said CBC on it. He wanted it. The gentleman that owned the house didn't want to sell it.
Right.
Lucky for my dad, my mom loved the house, so they put in an offer, and my dad included the microphone in the offer. Of the house.
I've never heard of somebody purchasing a house to get
the microphone.
To get the microphone. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. See, now there's a wonderful story. I mean, I've got an old CBC microphone. I've been on radio for 25 years with CBC. I was such a big fan of what Peter Zosky and what he gave me and the love for this country. So when I saw the microphone, I just said, I wish I could take it home. But unfortunately, with that kind of story, it ain't ever going to leave your family.
I don't think my dad wants to part with it yet.
It's a wonderful old Western Electric microphone, a 633. And what was interesting is companies like CBC would modify the microphone for their application. The top part of here, this is called the flag. Okay. This is where the call letters are. Very, very scarce in the world of collecting microphones. Everybody's looking for that when you're looking at the old microphone. The nickname of the microphone is the salt shaker, because if you look at the design of it, it's kind of like a salt shaker, you know, depending on how you look at imagination, I guess, to it all. Do you ever have any idea of value?
No.
Do you know if it works?
No.
Never even tried that?
No.
In today's market, I mean, taking into consideration the call letters here, it would be no less than $700. Now, with the call letters or the flag at the top there, it could easily be $1,000 or greater depending on who's looking at it. If it's somebody who has their heart into it, that wouldn't be a problem. So, wonderful piece, wonderful story. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is how the West was opened up. Where did you get this?
My dad made it in the early 40s for his parents as a gift. He saved all the box tops from the borax bleach, and he had to send them in, and you would get the mules, and he got it and put it all together. So it's probably about 65 years old, I would think.
So the 20 mule team borax.
200 to 300.
I would think so.
Because it's in good shape.
Standing here, looking at this very fine, precious little object, I am amazed at the quality of the work. This is a little Japanese lacquer screen, all beautifully inlaid with mother of pearl, tortoise shell, a little bit of stained ivory, coral, a whole variety of materials, and the overall work is just spectacular. I'd like you to tell me how you came by this piece, and also how you've managed to keep it in such great condition.
It was always, as far as I can remember, on my mom's dresser. And when she passed away, I just had to have it. And I keep it very carefully in a pouch, and I keep it at the bank actually because I'm afraid that, in case of fire, it's totally gone. There is nothing left.
Well, it's too bad that it's not out on display, but I can understand your concerns. It's what's called Japanese Shibayama lacquer. The Shibayama family were working in the 1700s, and they were the first ones to start inlaying lacquer with this kind of precious material. Now, this piece dates from the last quarter of the 19th century and is highly collectible by discerning Japanese collectors. I would have said at auction sale, it's probably worth something in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
Could you run that by me again, please? The value?
Value about $10,000 to $15,000, I think.
It will stay in the family. It won't go.
Absolutely immaculate. Just tremendous.
What can you buy for $5?
I bought this.
Oh, let's have a
look. Steal.
A steal, I think so. And where did you buy it?
A Salvation Army thrift store.
And it must have said something to you.
Oh, I saw it and I grabbed it immediately. I thought it was beautiful. I was like,
well, it is. I mean, it's Ukrainian. It was probably painted by an immigrant. It's so cheerful. It's just such a happy piece. You must love living with it. It's not all painted, but I don't think that detracts from it at all. This part here, the face is collaged. It was probably cut out of a magazine, and the birds as well. The frame is just magnificent. If I was going to put it in a show and was going to ask a price, I would put at least $800 on it. I think it's one of the happiest, most decorative pieces I've seen.
That's terrific. Like I say, I love it. I couldn't believe that it was sitting there. I thought, who would have given this away? Like, they're insane. But anyway, it's really nice. Thank you.
So, congratulations on your $5 spending.
Yeah, I know. It's a good deal.
You brought in a large painting, but in a very small format. When you look at the painting, you can just see how you can go into the far distance of the painting in this area here, and there's more and more to see.
Many layers.
Yeah. Do you know anything about the painter? Or?
I don't. Like, we've had it in our house, in my bedroom, since I was a little child. It was in my grandparents' place, and my mother remembers it just from when she grew up. It was always there, right above the fireplace.
Yeah. Well, it's an English painter, Henry H. Parker.
Okay.
And he lived from 1858 to 1930, but he was superb in this type of harvest scenes that he painted in England. And as you can see, there's such incredible details in the sky, and in the far distance he detailed everything. So it could be a painting that was 4 by 5 feet. It would not,
really?
Because the scene, there's so much going on in the painting.
Yeah.
The thing that this painting would be greatly enhanced if you had it cleaned.
Okay.
The colors would come up beautiful. The sky would be blue and the white clouds and the gray, and you will get much more enjoyment out of it. Did you have it insured or?
No, it's just
a painting.
It's just a painting we've always had.
Yeah, well, he's a wonderful painter, and this is a 10 out of 10 for him.
No way.
Yeah, and you should insure it for about $9,000.
No way. We've got another one.
Oh, bring them all in.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I can't believe that.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very fine painting.
We had a stunning response from the people of Lethbridge in southern Alberta. I'd say this was one of the most successful shows we've ever had in terms of crowds. Thousands of people coming with this great variety of objects, again, that sort of reflects the immigrant experience, the pioneer experience, and really a great, interesting variety of things, and awfully good-natured about having to stand in line. But the appraisers are very, very happy today. Wonderful Antiques Roadshow from Lethbridge, Alberta.